Hi, welcome back to Binkerbelle's Yarning. Today is Tuesday, September 17th. It's Tutorial Tuesday. Now, as originally planned, we were going to do the Tunisian basket weave stitch. Unfortunately, my hands have been very sore for the last week or so, so I haven't been able to do more than 10 or 15 minutes on any given project. And Tunisian is completely out of the question simply by the way that I hold my hook and my yarn. So it's just been causing extreme pain. So I've been doing like very little in the way of crocheting or knitting, just stuff that I can pick up and put down easily without getting lost in it. So instead of our block tutorial today, I'm actually going to start a segment that I had originally planned to start in October. Now this was actually something that Jeannie's Creations started. She asked me a very specific question, and I thought that instead of just answering her directly, I would answer everybody, because chances are you are not the only one that has that question, Jeannie's Creations. So it will be a Tutorial Tuesday Q&A. It'll be a separate video from the actual Tutorial Tuesday blocks, and I will answer questions. So for this session, not only do I have Jeannie's Creations question, but I also have other questions that I found in groups and on the internet that are pretty frequently asked. That being said, this is the video that gives you the chance to ask questions. So in the comment section below, put any question that you have, and I will answer it the following Tutorial Tuesday. If your question gets on the video, email me your address and I will send you a surprise. Ooh. That's always exciting. So our first question is, how do you care for blankets and other handmade items? So first off, check the label on the yarn. Okay, it will tell you what you can and cannot do with it. So look at the washing instructions. It will answer that question specifically. If you're not sure or the label doesn't say what you can and cannot do with it cleaning wise, then I would suggest either putting it in the washing machine on a delicate cycle or hand washing it, and then lay flat to dry. Just that way you don't get any stretching or pulling within it. If you hang it to dry, then the weight of the project will actually stretch it downwards. So I suggest those wire flat drying racks, and just lay it over that and let it dry on its own. There are certain materials that are hand wash only. They usually will say on the label what you can and cannot do with it, like whether or not you can put it in the washing machine. Such things as linens and pure silks, I would definitely hand wash those and then lay flat to dry. So next question. Finishing someone else's projects when hooks and needles are not with the project. So often we inherit yarn and partially finished projects from people who have passed on. And those projects often don't come with specified hooks or needles that were used. So in order to determine what hook or needle you need in order to finish that project, make a gauge swatch. So 4 by 4 inches or 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters. With various hooks to see, or needles to see which gauge is used. Okay, you can either put it right up to it, or you can, and then you count the number of stitches, or you can measure out the 4 by 4 block or the 10 by 10 centimeter block on the project itself, and count the number of stitches and the number of rows that are in that section, and then hook with or knit with different size hooks and the same yarn that's used in the project to get your gauge. And then you just do the comparison, and you can usually very easily figure out what hook or needle was used in that project. Selling items made from patterns that are not your own. So this is a frequently asked question. I see it all the time in my groups on Facebook. Now, you can sell whatever you make. There is absolutely no rules against doing that. Okay, you made it, it's your art, you have the right to sell it. Now, it is polite and customary to reference the original writer of the pattern. So if it's not your pattern, or you just didn't make it up as you go, or it's not a simple granny square blanket, or a corner to corner, if you actually are following a specific pattern, make sure that you reference the pattern and the creator. That way they get the credit that's due to them for all the hard work that they put in. So if you're selling at a craft fair, you can make labels with your prices on them, and then you can actually put right on the label pattern by, and then whoever it was that made the pattern. That is the most polite and customary way to do it, but not required. Right? It's nice to give pattern writers the credit they do, because there is a lot of work that goes into writing a pattern. Those people that say you cannot sell products made from my pattern, they can't do that. You can't copyright art or intellectual content. So because you are probably going to use different colors of yarn, and no project when it comes to knitting or crochet is going to turn out exactly the same way every time, because you do make mistakes, you're human. It's really not fair or right to state that you cannot sell anything that you've made from a pattern that somebody else has written. So hopefully that answers that. Next one is it possible to knit with a crochet hook? So you can't actually knit with a crochet hook. However, you can create knit look stitches. So using the Tunisian knit and crochet knit stitch and purl stitch, that gives you a knit look. Like, it makes it look like a knitted garment. There are also crochet knit stitches. So you can find those just by Googling crochet knit stitch or popping it into your Pinterest search bar. You can also use a nook. So a nook is this. Okay, so it's a crochet hook, but it has a hole in the back, just like a needle. Now this hole actually carries a cord through your work as you nook. Okay, so it's very similar to Tunisian, where you go through like this, but you pull the cord this way. We'll do a tutorial on how to use that and how to actually nook at another time. Or you can pick up those nooking kits off of Amazon, or at your local craft store, or even the dollar store. I've seen them there, Dollarama. It comes with the nook and it comes with the cord, and you just follow the simple booklet. If you're curious about that before we actually do the tutorial, then there are lots of videos online on how to nook. What is blocking, and should I block my project? Now, that is actually a loaded question, simply because there's so many different factors involved in that answer. So blocking is when you stake out your project in order to make it more square or rectangle or triangle. And you usually spritz it with a water starch combination, or just water, and it holds its shape so that you get nice, consistent sides and you don't get rolling and that kind of stuff. That being said, this is something that really only works well with natural fibers. So wools, cotton, silks, that kind of stuff, bamboo, because the fabric itself will absorb the water and then retain the shape. If you're using 100% acrylic yarn, blocking doesn't really work unless you're using a starch, and then you get a very stiff project. If you're having issues with curling or bunching in your projects, the chances are you're probably either working too tight or you're working with a hook that's too small for that particular project or that particular yarn. How do I crochet if I am left-handed? Well, that is honestly very simple. Just use your left hand. There are plenty of videos online on how to do patterns left-handed. I know the Crochet Crowd with Mikey, he does left and right hand tutorials for his videos. I learned how to knit from a left-handed woman, and I knit right-handed, so I literally just mirrored what she was doing. So she was working with her left hand, I sat in front of her, and I did exactly the same thing with my right as she did with her left. So if you're just getting started in left hand, in crochet or knitting, definitely check out left hand videos. Again, I highly suggest the Crochet Crowd with Mikey, because he does walk through everything that he does very simply, and he repeats himself, and it's easy to stop and start his videos. So you can Google crochet left hand or knit left hand, and the videos will pop up for that. So, Jeannie's Creations. What is the most frequently used knitting needle size? So, a lot of people who want to get started in knitting but are not quite sure whether or not they're going to enjoy it don't want to buy an entire set of needles. Same thing in reverse with crochet. They're not quite sure if they want to get into it, and they don't want to put down a lot of money on hooks. Thankfully, hooks are cheaper than needles, which is nice. However, just like crochet and just like knitting, check your yarn labels. Okay, your yarn labels will give you the suggested size of needle or hook to use for that particular yarn. Now, the most popular yarn weight is a worsted or a 4-weight yarn, and generally speaking, you use a 5, a 5.5, or a 6 millimeter hook. And in knitting, you use a number 8 or a 5 millimeter hook, or a 5.5 or a 6 millimeter hook. Needle for worsted weight. Now, the other thing is check your pattern. So if you're following a specific pattern, then it will give you the needle or hook size that is required for that particular pattern. If you just want to play around, grab a skein of worsted weight yarn, grab a 5.5 or 6 millimeter needle set or crochet or hook set, and go to town. Right? There's no reason why you can't increase or decrease your needle size in order to get a looser or tighter fabric out of it. If you find that you are a tight knitter or a tight crocheter, definitely go up one size. It'll make it easier to get into your stitches. So hopefully, Jeannie's Creations, I answered your question. If not, then by all means let me know and I can elaborate even more on that. So, Jeannie, go ahead and email me. I will send you a surprise in the mail, and ask your questions down below, and I will answer anything. So it doesn't have to be crochet or knit related, or even yarn related. I will answer any question that you have, as long as it's not too personal, obviously. So yeah, that's about it. Any questions you have, whether it's directly related to me or it's directly related to yarn art, I will find the answer if I don't know it. Okay, so questions in the comments, and I will see you tomorrow for We Learn Wednesday.